Live from a grungy kitchen table located in Annapolis, Maryland's scenic and historic capital, it's the Maryland Crabs Podcast. With each episode, your hosts, Tim Hamilton, John Fernay, and the occasional guest will dive in and pick apart the stuff that really matters most to you. We're too lazy to actually solve any of these problems, but we can definitely stir the pot. From schools, politics, parking in the fire lane, to those horrible people who drive BMWs. And here with this week's episode, live from the kitchen table, Tim Hamilton and John Fernay.
Hey, it's the Maryland Crabs.
It is.
Yeah, you've never heard about this before, and there's a good reason.
Because we haven't done anything before.
Yeah, we've never existed. Bought equipment, sat around for months. Well, the idea sat around for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
it was a drinking idea.
Yeah. And they're always the best.
Getting married was a drinking idea, too.
Some of them are always the best.
This better work out better than the marriage thing. My wife will never listen to this.
Ooh, there's an opportunity.
I'm Tim Hamilton.
I'm John Fernay. And together, I guess we are the Maryland Crabs. That sounds kind of hokey and stuff like that.
We are hokey, so we're going to be conspiracy guys. We're going to be news guys, analytical guys. We're going to make sweeping generalizations about people and situations with government and condemn them without actually doing anything to help, because that's what we do.
Yeah,
we point out the failings of everybody else while making ourselves seem more superior.
But we are equal opportunity, and periodically we will bring in people to tell us how wrong we are.
Yep, we got some guests that are going to be coming in. That's going to be every couple episodes, every 2 or 3 episodes we're going to bring in a guest. It's not going to be two guys between a palm on community access. It's going to be a little confrontational. We're going to get to the bottom of some stuff, and at the end we're not going to solve anything, because that's not what we do. We're idea guys.
Absolutely. But like Tim said, I'm John Fernay. I've got Eye on Annapolis, which is a local community blog that focuses on news, events, and opinion in Anne Arundel County. And I'm also on the morning show at WRNR 1031. And Tim is like a marketing guru. It's probably the word that always comes to my mind and most everybody else's mind when they talk to you.
Marketing guru / bullshit artist, because that's what marketing is.
Yeah, okay.
But essentially, I've been in media for 25 years. I've worked in TV news. I worked in stand-up comedy. I did radio consulting. I did marketing, branding. Right now, I am a consultant, and I did independent writer, and I consume tons of podcasts. And the idea, I think at this point, we really got to give some credit out to Scott MacMullan for the Annapolis podcast.
Oh, without a doubt.
Who's the inspiration for this, and he is the godfather of Annapolis podcasting. And if you haven't, find the Annapolis podcast and subscribe. It's a great podcast, but odds are that if you listen to his, you're going to be listening to ours right now. But he deserves a lot of credit for really bringing the medium to town. So hats off to Scott. Great guy.
Tip of the hat, absolutely. And we're a little bit different than the Annapolis podcast because he's primarily focused on interviews. He brings people in. He's got a great history of the past.
And he's a professional. He probably prepares for his podcasts.
Yeah. That'd be the difference.
That's a lot of work. I'm not up to that.
That's true. Just for a sit down, plug in the wires, plug it in the wall, and let it roll.
So our goal is this. So we're going to do a podcast every 2 weeks. We think that's a manageable schedule. It's going to be around an hour. Today may be a little bit short because all we're going to be doing is giving you just kind of an overview of a little taste of what we're doing, and we're going to figure it out as we go. So they're going to be a little clunky to begin with, but we don't care because you're not paying for this. So
right.
If you want your money back,
you can send it to...
Well, you could send it to the Maryland Crabs page on Facebook or the Maryland Crabs group on Facebook. We have 2 pages because we're that special. We're going to have a YouTube channel up probably the next couple days, and on Twitter you can find us at the Maryland Crabs. And on the web, themarylandcrabs.com, and we have an email there. So if you have any problems with us, you can send it to us where we will promptly delete it.
Okay, and see how screwed up we are? It's Maryland Crabs with an S. On all of that. And if I get off my ass this weekend, we'll have an email address. Probably info@themarylandcrabs.com.
And if you have topics you want us to discuss, you have an issue with what we say, we will bring that up on air. We'll talk about that. We're going to be doing some live shows coming up as well. Mm-hmm. We're going to plunk down in local bars, local organizations. And we're going to do some live stuff, especially around election, and especially next year during the mayoral election. We got some plans for that. We're going to have the candidates in, but we're going to have a good time with this. So, like we said, Maryland Crabs page, Maryland Crabs group on Facebook, Maryland Crabs on Twitter, MarylandCrabs.com, and then, of course, our YouTube.
And, well, that's sort of it about us, what we're going to do. What do you want to talk about?
I thought you had the topics.
Oh, shit. You know, we had lunch at Little Italy.
Good place.
Half hour ago.
Yep. On Forest.
And you were supposed to bring the topics in.
Did.
Yeah, you kind of missed that one.
So, actually, one thing we want to talk about. So, when we're recording this, it'll get out probably about 4 or 5 days after we record. So, it's going to be kind of topical. But the one thing we're going to talk about right now is, I guess, yesterday that the Governor Hogan announced that he was going to have schools were going to open no later than Labor Day, as we all remember from when we were kids, or at least we're probably romanticizing that. I don't know if that was always the case.
No earlier than Labor Day.
No earlier than Labor Day.
Right. And close no later than June 15th.
Right. So what happens is that puts a crunch right now because by law they're required to have 180 school instruction days, right?
Right.
So the Board of Education, and this is where you're going to have to explain it to me, or the AACPS, they had a prepared statement that came out pretty quickly after this. So it looks like they've been working on this for a while, and it was on their Facebook pages, on their website. Basically said what?
Yeah, it wasn't a big secret. I mean, we knew that Peter Franchot, who's the comptroller of Maryland, was hot on this for years. And Hogan got on board with it last year, and you just knew it was a matter of time before it came.
Well, let's just say this. Hogan's a populist. He's a very popular governor, is it. But, I mean, he's done things. He's rolled back the tolls, which again, but were higher than what we thought. I mean, there was supposed to be a huge increase, and he's like, not so fast. And we're like, okay, a moderate increase is great. So, I mean, they got us on that.
The rain tax?
Rain tax.
Was gone.
Right. So he's
talking about a third span of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
Right. So he's a populist. So this is a very popular move by all accounts, but not all accounts.
Without a doubt. But the school came out with a prepared statement saying how horrible it was and how bad it's going to be for the kids because they're not going to be able to prepare for the standardized testing. And they said that it's a mathematical impossibility to convert the required number of days into it, which I just think is just total bullshit. You look at the calendar, and there's plenty of days you can come up with.
We'll take a step back. So why? So I was looking at the Facebook page because that's where all the action happens. You know, there's the Capitol post-it, and there were some comments after that, but the Facebook page, that was the AACPS Facebook page. It seemed like the vast majority of people were in support of this, and one person they had this snarky. They're saying it's funny all the parents are against this. I'm like, it looks to me like all the parents are for this, and it seemed like there weren't many dissenting voices, but the dissenting voices I did hear were from some of the teachers. I mean, you hover over their name and their employees.
There are some teachers that are going to be upset just because I think cramming. I mean, you are going to have to put a little bit more education in a little bit less of a time. And I think that's going to put some pressure on some teachers that they're going to need to maybe work a little bit harder, work a little bit longer. And I'm not saying that they don't work hard or they don't work long, because they do. And they put their own time, they put their own money into the classrooms to educate your kids and my kids. So, I mean, they're great people. But I think this is going to put a little bit of a crunch on the teachers.
I don't know. I'm not buying it. I just, why... The teachers, like the privately, so I talked to a few teachers, they're all for it. It seems like the union is against this. I don't know. Is it as simple as that they feel that there's a pressure that they need the educational days? Because I just don't. I don't think so. I think I guess I just am bewildered as to why they would oppose this.
It is the union. I mean, I don't think the individual teachers oppose it. They're getting an extra couple days of vacation in the summer, just as the children,
couple weeks
as the kids are. Well, they go back a little bit.
Well, yeah, okay, but they're getting another week of vacation.
Yeah, just as the kids will. I think the teachers individually are probably for it. However, the union is opposed to it for a number of different reasons. The school's position is that it's going to be impacting when our students take the standardized testing, the SATs and the AP test and whatnot, because that's set not by the school district but by Princeton, whatever that place is up.
Because it's standardized,
yeah. And they tell you what days to take it, but that doesn't really make that argument's sort of false. It doesn't make any sense to me.
All right, so you did some math on it, the days. All right, so they have to come up with what, 10 days?
They've got to come up with 10 days, and it's fairly easy. First of all, we've got 5 days built in for snow. Okay, so if we have, and it's an if we have a weak winter, you got 5 days right there.
Which can be, which also has become almost standard that they waive those at the end of the year.
Right, exactly. They take off a day for the attendance of the Maryland State Education Association convention in Ocean City in October.
And all the teachers go?
They shut down schools, and all of the teachers are able to go. The gist of that is that most of the teachers don't go. And just a very few, I wouldn't say very few, but they don't. So why don't you open the schools?
Is it mandatory?
No, it's not mandatory.
So wait, so they have a convention.
The state teachers convention in October.
Right, and they shut schools down and say if you want to go, you can go.
Right,
but you're not required to.
Correct. So it's essentially a paid day off for the teachers, or if they want to, and there's plenty of great stuff that goes on down there. If they want to go attend the convention, they can certainly go. But most of them don't. They just take a paid day off. So if the people that attended, maybe RSVP'd and let them know that they were attending while school was in session, they could make arrangements to have substitutes cover for them. I mean, I don't want to preclude the teachers from going to the convention because I think it's very valuable for them. But when you've got most of them that don't go, that's an issue.
Well, especially because all right, so that's one day right there. We have the half days. We have a myriad of half days.
I got into an argument last week with Rob in the morning show on this, and he said, well, the half day is counted as a whole day in school math.
Right.
But my thought was that you've got so many of these half days throughout the year that if you condense them into one day, that frees up another day that you could put to a full thing. If you're looking at 180 days, you condense all the half days into it, that still leaves you more days on the end that you could fill, and then you still get the 180 days that you require.
All right, so spring break, and this is horrible. I should know all this. I got kids, but I never pay attention. I just, whenever my wife says we're going somewhere, I just have you look at the calendar.
Get in the car and go.
Right. But so spring break is always around Easter, yes?
Mm-hmm. No, not always, but yeah, pretty much. They try to tie it in with the Good Friday.
But Good Friday and what's called Easter Monday, which is ridiculous because there's no such thing as Easter Monday. So the Monday after Easter,
right?
I don't get why those are holidays.
It's a Hallmark holiday.
I don't think Easter is really that big of a travel holiday. It's so I guess that's 2 days right there.
Well, I think a spring break could float, or it could be in March or whenever it is, regardless of when Easter it is. I think there's a good argument to be made that we don't celebrate or we don't give off Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. We don't give off
Yom Kippur. We do. Not this year because it's on a holiday.
Not next year.
Yeah, but
is it on a weekend?
Yeah, it's on a weekend, but normally they do. And it went from from Rosh Hashanah. I think I'm going to be speaking out of turn. Rosh Hashanah this year and last year were not, and they usually were. So now it's just Yom Kippur. And I point this out, and because I'm picking on the Christians with Good Friday and Holy Monday or whatever, or Monday after Easter. I'm going to say the same thing. We have I looked this up last night. We have 0.5% of the county population is Jewish, and in Montgomery County it's 5%, which is why you have so much. You follow all the holidays in Montgomery County. Here, is it just a token at that point? Because someone made the argument, well, what about Christmas? I'm like, well, 70-some% of the people are Christian, so they'd be taken off anyway. So it's just a logistical thing. But I don't think Good Friday or Holy Monday, and the fact that Annapolis employees gets Good Friday off is ridiculous too. I mean, that's
the city employees.
That's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, you look at September 1st next year is, and I'll screw up the pronunciation of this, but Eid al-Adha, which apparently is a Muslim holiday, and the school says that they're open. However, you get excused for religious purposes if you don't want to attend,
and that's 1% of Maryland population.
Right.
Is Muslim.
And honestly, I think with you've got the whole, we're born on the separation of church and state. Why are we doing Good Friday? Why are we doing this Easter Monday? Maybe make that optional.
All right. So right now, we got the convention. We've got Easter Monday. I'm not going to call it that. It's Monday after Easter.
Right.
Good Friday, and then Yom Kippur. So we got 4 days right there.
Right. There's also 4 more days that they have for parent-teacher conferences, and they're held during the day, which is not very attractive to parents at work.
Yeah, it's tough.
And the teachers are there, and most of them, especially more in the high school than in the middle school or the elementary school, they sit there with their thumbs up their ass in the classroom because most parents won't go to a high school parent-teacher conference. Elementary school kids will, and I guess the thought is that by the time you get to high school, your kid either has his act together and can handle it. But most high school teachers I've spoken with don't do a whole lot on the parent-teacher conference nights. Why not ship that into evenings, or maybe 2 evenings, pay the overtime to the teachers, or somehow compensate them. Maybe it's comp time off when they can or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And then you've got 4 days that you can free up there.
All right, so now we're up to 8.
Right. There's also another school for just, you got the professional development days that are peppered throughout.
What are those? I never questioned those.
Again, just I guess to learn how to teach. You can better yourself and better your team.
Like they have like seminars or workshops or
I don't really know what they do.
It's like one of those mysterious things I just see it on the calendar, and I just know that I got the kids for the day.
Yeah, it really is. You've got a lot of 2-hour dismissals for the professional development days, and there's actually one day which is strictly off for professional development. So, we've got almost 10 days without touching vacations. Without touching the snow days.
Because this year, I think we lost until this year, I think it was Thanksgiving week, wasn't it? Which was stupid. Mm-hmm. And that was, I think it's always been you got off on Wednesday and for travel and then everything. I mean, that seemed to but they're off Monday and Tuesday too, which seems like overkill.
Right.
No one's traveling at that time.
So, but I did a poll on Twitter and I sent it out I said, hey teachers, what are your thoughts? And 75% said that it was a good thing. When I did the same thing to parents, I said, hey, what are your thoughts? Had 78%.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page. It just seems like this between the union and the governor.
And I'll tell you, that number is very consistent with what the Capitol had in their poll, and it's very consistent with what Governor Hogan said in his press conference yesterday. He said that, we've talked, 75% of the population is behind this.
This happened fast too. French Show's been going on about this for a while. I didn't see it happening this fast. They announced that they were going to have a press conference a couple of days ago. Everyone knew what it was going to be. AACPS had their response already drafted.
Oh, everybody has their response.
Which was not, by the way, which was not particularly good response. I think most people, I saw it on Facebook, most people were saying, what the heck? It was kind of anemic.
Oh, it was. It was a bullshit response. It was there, and you've got... Bob Moser, who's the spokesperson, says that, oh my God, it puts a stranglehold on the school district. Well, no, it doesn't. It makes you work a little bit more hard to get the calendar together. Mm-hmm. It can be done. When you were growing up, when did you start school?
I went to Catholic school, so it was after Labor Day. I think everyone did, though.
I mean, everybody started after Labor Day, and it got done. It's just a matter of...
But the counties can the individual counties can ask for waivers, can't they?
They can, but it's a month, or not a month-to-month, but it's a year-to-year basis, and it's not going to be granted just because we asked for it. There's got to be some compelling reasons for it. Okay, hey, I've got 40% of my schools that are going under construction, and I'm not going to be able to open them on time or whatever it is, or they're going to be delayed or something. Something along those lines might be something that they would consider a waiver. But you've also got to look at who's going to be granting the waivers. This is going to be the State Board of Education, which is run by a Secretary of Education in the state of Maryland that's appointed by the governor, who is obviously behind this initiative.
So Hogan's he's going to win another term, hands down, unless they catch him.
At this point, certainly.
Yeah, so we got this for another 6 years. Do you think a Democratic governor would roll it back?
I think it would be difficult to do. I mean, at that point, then, are you playing the kids for pawns? I mean, you're just jerking them around left and right. Okay, no, you start here, you start there.
In all honesty, and I got to say this too. I mean, first of all, let me just say this. I come from a family of teachers. My mother's a principal. I have nothing but utmost respect. So if you think we're banging on teachers, we're absolutely not.
No, I agree.
Absolutely not. But I will say that my kids came home. They go to public school, and the last week of school, they came home, and all they did was watch movies. And that's not an indictment of the teacher. That's just, at this point, the teachers and the students are absolutely burned out.
They've totally checked out, sure.
So I totally get that. Extending this, even if you could, which you can't, even if you extend the summer, you're not going to get any more done.
No.
You just don't.
No. Another solution maybe, and it may even be there, and I don't know what the rule is, but why not? You've got this 180 days. Why not convert that to hours?
Yeah.
Does it make sense? Perhaps an individual school could turn around and say, okay, we've got an off athletic season. So instead of getting out at 3:15 this, in the middle of December, because maybe basketball's there and don't have football and they don't have daylight, we're going to go till 3:45.
I guess they could do that. I mean, parents would riot. That's where I hear, especially around snow days, if you go to the AACPS Facebook page where it's war, and it's basically the parents versus the teachers on that page, and it's the teachers saying, hey, we're not your babysitters, and parents going, yeah, that's right, but any shift in the schedule, just really, we're working parents, what do you want us to do? So you can always have that war.
It does. It screws parents.
And it does. Does. They're not babysitters, because, again, I have nothing but utmost respect for the teachers, but we have a social contract that this is what we do, and you build your lives around that, so anything that kind of disrupts that is going to be, I think it's especially hard on the parents. Because I will say that most teachers And of course, you're going to have some outliers, but I think most teachers who have kids are going to have them in the same school system in which they work, like in Anne Arundel County. So if they're off, their kids are off, and vice versa. So there's not.
It makes it easy for them.
Exactly. Easier. I'm not saying, and again, I have to keep saying this so we're not getting the nasty emails because I think what teachers do is phenomenal.
You've also got a teacher that lives next door to you, so you're just worried that your house doesn't get egged.
She just looks out my window. But I think it seems like the teachers and the parents are on the same page on this one. The teachers are quieter about it because I think that I think it's a union. I guess I'm not getting the unions, if it is a union, which it is, but I'm not getting their point.
Governor Hogan was pretty clear in saying that he said that the unions control the legislature, which is a Democratic legislature, and he's a Republican governor. So, Hogan can say the sky is blue, and they may come around and say, "Oh no, it's green."
You know what, though? I always wondered about that. So, basically, I think, what was it, 40, 50 years ago, unions were something like 30% of the American working class. Mm-hmm. Now it's like 8 to 10. And you're not and of that, they're mostly public service unions, like government employees, sure. Police officers, firefighters, and
truckers?
Teachers. But I think so. So typically, you say Democrats are pro-union, Republicans are not, and the Republicans accuse the unions of manipulating. But most police officers and firefighters I know are conservative Republicans, but they're unionized. So that's where I get bewildered. That the police and the firefighters union is cool, but the teachers union is not. I just don't get that. I just don't get that economy.
Well, it'll be interesting. You've got some politics mates trained bedfellows. You take a look at Peter Franchot, who's a Democrat. Moving this forward with Larry Hogan as a Republican. Mm-hmm. Is Franchot going to challenge Hogan in 2 years?
I don't know, but Franchot's been he poked O'Malley quite a bit.
Yes,
to the point that we were all surprised he didn't run. But yeah, he was poking at him pretty hard.
Yes, he did. Maybe he's looking to go and let Hogan have another 4 years and take it after 6.
Yeah, well, he's playing it smart. He's playing a long game.
Yeah,
and Hogan, Hogan's wildly popular. I think Ehrlich was pretty popular for a Republican governor. But Hogan, by all accounts, is wildly popular, more so than any governor in recent memory.
Oh yeah, and even among Democrats,
especially among Democrats,
his approval rating is crazy there. The other thing that's kind of interesting that somebody had brought up to me is, in addition to Franchot and his start the school year later, you've got a local effort here to start the school day later.
Yeah, but from what I understand, that comes down to school buses. That's what it is. Is that
that is the school district is saying that's the big thing. But what they're saying,
my father, he lives in New York City, and he's a big Twitter user, and he sent me a tweet yesterday. I forget who it was, but they're talking about early school days, and they did some profile on a national level of some student who's got to be at 7:17 at Annapolis, and he asked if I read it. I said I did, but I didn't.
It was New York Times had a piece.
The Times, yeah. Yep. So
is it the Wall Street Journal or New York Times? One of the two had a piece on it.
But the fact that they're doing this in Annapolis, does that mean that we are an outlier when it comes to other school districts? And if we are, then why?
7:17 for high school was quoted as being the earliest start time in the country.
That's crazy. I didn't start that early. I grew up in Montgomery County, and again, that was Catholic high school. We started at 8:10. I don't know why I still remember that, but I remember the public school kids waiting for the bus because I took the metro, and I'd walk by them, and they were they were around the same time. So I'm just assuming they didn't. 7:17 is crazy.
Yeah, 7:17, and it is going later next year. They have agreed to do it. They've been able to shift a little bit to get, I think, 15 minutes later.
That's still stupid.
But the people that are pushing that whole initiative have said, well, wait a minute, one of the arguments is, Hogan, don't meddle in local business. Don't meddle in the local school district thing. Now the start school day later are saying, well, wait a minute. If he can make this sweeping, hey, we're going to change the school calendar all statewide, why can't he do this? And
right.
here's the data. Here's the data that supports a later school start.
And if that was an executive order that he gave, and that's what they're taking. Right. This is kind of a microcosm of what's happening nationally, where the Republicans are taking Obama apart about his, the executive orders that he's made in the last couple of years, especially,
right.
Which all presidents have done, but he has done more frequently than previous presidents. But you see that here, where you have the counties going, "Hey, wait a minute, let us make our own decisions." You're not a monarch. But it's funny how it's playing itself out.
Well, you look at why
level.
Obama's done that. It's just because he's had a Congress that just refuses to do anything with him. What else? How else are you going to get shit done?
Yeah, well,
you work with the tools that you're given.
Yeah, but it is. But yeah,
as opposed to the tools that are elected.
Yeah, but but what if President Trump starts doing this? I think then Democrats are going to change their mind about the whole executive order. I mean, it's all well and good when it's your guy, someone else. But I mean, he is going to get stuff done. I mean, look how fast that Hogan got this done. It's just so. I mean, no discussion, no debate, no articles, all within like 36 hours. He's like, I'm going to give you a press conference, and then boom, it was done. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And I guess the early school people. But then. He basically did it the populist way. He's like, here's what I want you to do, figure it out. So now it's incumbent upon the Archuleta and everyone to come up with a way. He could do the same where I guess the county would say, we don't have enough buses that we can push the day later, and he'll just say, just figure it out. Here's your executive order.
Yeah, buy the buses. Well, what I think is going to happen is I think you're going to see the next year you're going to go through, the school is probably going to apply for some sort of a waiver. They may get it, but they may get it with a warning saying, yeah, this is a one-shot deal. But I think after a year or two, they're going to find out that it's a little bit easier to do than or they're going to figure out a way to do and make it work. And that's why I don't think it's going to get repealed if it stays.
When you have that pressure, I've worked for some entrepreneurs over the time, and when you work for an entrepreneur, it's different than corporate because they just want it done. And there's been times where I've had the owner or the boss come up to me and says, here's what I need done. You're like, we don't have enough time. We can't get it done. And he's like, get it done. And you find out, yeah, you can get it done when you have that much pressure.
Which part of get it done didn't you understand?
Yeah, and I think that's what the county's been told is get it done, and they will do it. They can't not do it.
One of the greatest Maryland stories I ever heard was when William Schaefer was mayor of Baltimore. And he would have a driver pick him up, and I guess in the early days of cell phones, he'd put his cell phone number out there, and he'd have constituents call him. And he would get back into the office, and he'd get on the phone to Public Works and say, hey, Mr. Jones called and said there's a pothole in front of his house. Go get that fixed. And I said, very good, sir. What's the address? He says, that's not my job. You figure it out. It's like, and they got fixed.
I've worked for that guy. He had a different name, but I did work for that guy.
Totally did.
All right, so it's going to be good to see. It's going to be interesting to see where this comes up. But if you're looking for a good read, I think the Facebook page for AACPS is always a great read whenever there's any sort of weather or snow. But it's just it's if you're not in the mood for intelligent debate, that's the place to go.
Absolutely.
I think we fished that pond out. The other thing I want to talk about was something that caught my eye in the Capitol today. It was a guest column by some Irish guy, Joe Tierney. Who's that?
He's the husband of Ellie Tierney, and together they own Chez, which is a bed and breakfast down on East Street in downtown Annapolis. And they had a little bit of a controversy when they first opened up because they painted a very nice mural of a flower box and a window on the side of their building with a bicycle leaning up there. And apparently Ward 1, as they always do, just lost their shit.
That's odd.
What, that they lost their shit? Or, yeah. He's got an interesting guest article.
All right, so his column was, I guess, he is, let me see.
But he's talking about Airbnb.
Yeah, so he said, have you ever stayed in Airbnb?
No.
I've never done it, and my brother does it. He travels the world. So Airbnb, for anyone who lives in a cave, is essentially that instead of going to a hotel or an inn or anything like that, is that people rent out their homes or apartments, and it's
or a part of it.
Or part of it. It's a rage. I mean, it's just everyone does this. I have not done it yet, but I'm looking into it. But what his column is that Airbnb is not paying their fair, what he considers to be their fair share or any share of the hotel tax that's applied to all the inns and hotels, everyone else, which is, I think, 7%. Right. So they're either exempt or they've fallen through it. Now, he claims that the county's out around $400,000 because of that, or the city. But your point was no.
Yeah, I mean, he's calculated out to $400,000 a year that's being left on the table for not collecting this tax from Airbnb. And the way the tax is collected, it goes through the county. Actually, I think it goes to the state and gets filtered down in through the county and whatnot. The city doesn't get 100% of that. So there is some money, some revenue that would come into the city for that. But it's not going to be the full $400,000 because that was the tax was championed by Connie Del Signore at the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which is now visitannapolis.com.
Because they get a percent of that.
They get a percent for their budget. It gets back into the transportation. It's sort of divvied out.
All right, so
to support the whole tourism industry.
I kind of say this. You know what? I love the concept of Airbnb. Everyone loves it. I love Uber. Who doesn't love Uber?
Mm-hmm.
But the cabbies, especially Robert Eads, he's a local cab driver and community activist. He's railed. He's had a war in city council about Uber. You know what? As much as I love Uber and the concept of Airbnb, they're kind of right. I mean, I hate the cabs in Annapolis. I despise them. I think they're awful. I think they're shady. I'm sure there's some nice people, Robert. But I mean. I've not had a lot of great experiences. That said, they have to pay for medallions, and the hotels have to pay the tax. But yet these companies come in that don't have to follow any of the rules or play the rules. So, I mean, I do, as much as I love them, I gotta kind of think that...
There's a good parallel between Uber on that, because Uber made the argument that they weren't a transportation company, they were a technology company, which was sort of a little bit of a stretch, but...
It's a huge stretch. All
right. Tim, okay, so you've got a nice house here. Mm-hmm. It's right here on the water. You've got your yacht out in the steps from your kitchen. The Rolls Royce is in the garage.
Well, it's getting repaired right now.
But when you go on vacation, say you go away for 2 weeks down to the Outer Banks or something like that with your family over the summer because you got an extra week of school, and you list your house on Airbnb for somebody to come in, and they pay, I don't know, $2,000 for 2 weeks or whatever it is, $1,000 a week. Are you expected to pay 7% of that as a hotel tax? Are you a hotel?
Well, now we're getting to it. Now I'm thinking, all right, so how many Annapolitans rent their houses out for commissioning week?
A lot.
A lot. So,
boat show weeks.
It would be interesting if that include that argument going not just Airbnb, but what about people? What's the difference? I guess now I'm thinking, what's the difference between Airbnb and someone, they'll say, well, they just rent their house out once a year.
On Craigslist.
Well, what if they did it twice a year? What's the difference between renting your house out?
Well, I know there's a law on Comar that says that I believe it's under 10 days. If you rent your house out under 10 days, it's just tax-free. That's, there's no... At
a time or like in a year?
No, in a year. In a year. So, my question is with Airbnb, and I don't know this, if I contract with Airbnb, do I have to say my house needs to be available for rent 10 weeks a year, 20 weeks a year, 52 weeks a year? I don't know. If Airbnb says that it needs to be a rental unit, then I would agree, and I would say that they are a hotel.
And the argument, it's funny, as you talk, I keep changing my mind back and forth when I look at both. Like, again, I love the concepts of them, and there's a reason they're successful, is because the hotels gouge. Mm-hmm. If you want to, then frankly, they don't.
The resort fees, this.
Right. Well, but a lot of that, you have that, but also because an easy way to make money in any municipality is to tax the rental cars and to tax the hotels and inns, because you're taxing tourists, and how much are they going to bitch?
Right.
They're not, so tax the out-of-towners because that's the easy way to do it. But yeah, they do throw on the fees and everything. But I mean, if you want waterfront hotel downtown, that's like $500 a night, and I guess the cabs are the same way. As I think by law they're supposed to be able to take credit cards, but I can't tell you how many times the guy's like, "Oh, my credit card machine's broken." No, it's not. It's you're scamming the system. But I think so you have. The reason Uber's so popular is because they're incredible. They're fantastic. They found if the cabbies were doing their jobs correctly and in a pleasant manner, the Uber would have fallen on its face. I think you kind of look at hotels. I think most hotels are nice, but I mean, for the expense, as expensive they are, you have Airbnb is just a much more attractive option because it's just the cost and the comfort and the location. But I guess. What's the difference between I'll drive you somewhere for $10, this one time, give you $10 for gas, or whether you have a medallion fee, mm-hmm. Or I don't know. I just these companies are obviously skirting or skating the thin ice of legality, going, oh, we're not a company, it's.
I mean, one of the solutions at least for the city of Annapolis would be to turn around and put, if you rent your home for one day or 365 days a year, there is maybe some sort of a license fee.
Yeah, but how would you monitor that?
It'd be difficult. I mean, you get neighbors that would complain for people that do that have rental units. I mean, they do people that have just strictly rental units. I mean, they've got to have annual inspections by the city.
Well, that's the other thing too, is that his argument is that what the money that they spend and the fees that they pay, they have to have health inspectors come in, they have to have food inspectors, and they have to have all these. And I think he's being a little overreaching. I mean, because if you have an Airbnb, you're not serving food, you're not doing any of those things. So I think that may be. I mean, he's got a good point, and then he kind of gilds the lily on that one. But I mean, I understand his frustration. You have people who are doing this that I don't know if people are doing this to make a living. I mean, do you have property that you don't live in, or is it only when you're gone? But he does kind of have a point. But
well, I think one point that he has that really wasn't made in that article is that he's not doing anything different than Airbnb. He has a home,
right?
That he didn't build a hotel. He doesn't have 30 rooms in a hallway. He's got several guest bedrooms in a large home that he lives in with his wife and their children, I guess. I don't know whether they have kids or not. And they're renting out the rooms.
Okay, so then why doesn't he just become Airbnb? why doesn't Robert Eads become an Uber driver? If you're getting your ass kicked by somebody and you're not going to be able to beat them because they're going to they fought this battle in city after city. If you file suit or the council passes law, it's a slow slog. So why not say screw it? I'm going to be an Airbnb, or screw it, I'm going to drive Uber. It's just join them.
Well, I think there's also something that as an Airbnb, you're not going to get any kind of support from Visit Annapolis. You're not going to get support from Maryland Department of Tourism. I think there's certainly a lot of benefits to being a hotel or being an inn or a bed and breakfast.
So I think, and that's what I didn't know this either. So the Visit Annapolis, which was the tourism, I guess just Visit Annapolis, but they essentially they find groups to come to Annapolis. It's not like businesses or anything. They find groups to come visit Annapolis, and they facilitate that. So it's they're not just a tourism board. They're actually, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're actually like pounding the pavement. They're making phone calls.
Oh, they're
getting groups to come here.
They've got separate divisions for sports, for groups. I mean, they're going out. We had just recently we had the not drum and fife, but it was a drum and bugle type corps competition that was here at the Naval Academy about a month ago. They went out and actually solicited that to have these people come in and have this 3-day performance. They went out, they beat the bushes to get the military bowl to come here.
All right, so what happens is, and I'm just talking out loud, so you have the Visitors Bureau that they're canvassing by phone or finding groups in Pennsylvania or Virginia or whatever, and that they want them to come to the area, and they're saying, hey, here's what we can do. We can get you blocks of rooms at this hotel or what have you. So the hotel benefits from them as basically an adjunct sales team. And in return, the money paid in tax to these hotels is then given back to the state, which then filters it down to specifically to the county.
To Visit Annapolis.
Right, but Visit Annapolis. So they get a percentage, right? So the more business that the hotels do, the more money that they are budgeted.
So they're
incentivized to do this.
Sure.
Okay, which is good, because from what I understand, they do a great job. So Airbnb would hurt those efforts for the most part, because you're not going to get blocks of rooms. You're not going, but it may take away from the business that they're already putting
into the hotels. Well, that's legitimate. It's a legitimate concern. And the thing that you've got to realize too, that Anne Arundel County has 3 separate zones, if you will, for tourism. You've got Annapolis, which is the historical part. You've got up by the airport, which is sort of the
industrial,
the commercial. But you've got the casino, and you've got Arundel Mills Mall, which that complex is the most visited destination in the state.
Right. Well, and then people can visit all the sites in Pasadena.
And you're a stone's throw to Baltimore and Camden Yards
and Bernie.
Yeah, Brooklyn, and then they've also got rural South County. So, and South County, how many hotels are there in South County?
Yeah.
0. So what's happening is that you've got some of the hotel taxes that we're getting in Linthicum, up in Harwood, and in Annapolis. Some of that money is going down to
South County,
supplement South County and the agriculture that we've got down there. Because, I mean, it's just such a beautiful area down there, but there are no hotels down there.
Do you know what's funny? And I think about this. I think we talked about this at one point. When you talk about, and I guess we should say right now, I'm independent. Like, I am center, slight left. John is probably center, slight right. So we don't agree on everything. But the one thing that
I was thinking about that the other night. I said I'm right with the left bent, and you're kind of left with a right bent.
Yes.
And So we're just kind of.
But I thought about that because my in-laws live in rural western Pennsylvania, and it's one of those areas that take in far more taxes and federal taxes than they put out. Mm-hmm. And they're very, very conservative. They're Donald Trump supporters, and they rail about the socialism. And I'm like, well, you guys are getting more than you're putting out. But, I mean, it's funny that the rural areas tend to be more conservative, that pull yourself out of your bootstrap, personal responsibility because you're on your own, etc. Whereas the urban areas tend to be more democratic because it's people have to work together to live together and everything. But they're the ones who generate the money, and the money that's generated in, let's say, stereotypically democratic liberal areas are then passed out to areas that tend to be rural and conservative that take in more than they put out. But they're the ones who are saying, personal responsibility and no socialism, no free rides.
Right.
It just it strikes me. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just, but it's funny, the dichotomy that comes along with that.
Well, it's a different perspective, that's for sure.
But it's I think that's where, if you could earmark the money, saying, hey, can Annapolis, can they? I think they can't set their own tax rate. Oh, they can set their own tax rate and fees, but they can't do a sales tax. That's what it is. So, and
that would be wonderful if they could.
If they could, yeah, but by law they can't do a sales tax, and this is a sales tax essentially. Or yes. would it be a service tax? I don't know. Is there? No, it has to be a sales tax.
I mean, what a 1% sales tax for the city of Annapolis would do for the city would just be immeasurable.
I will tell you this, though. I lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico for 5 years, and they had the ability to tax their people because New Mexico was a state of 2 million people, and 800,000 of them lived in Albuquerque. So most people live there, and they were able to levy their own city taxes, sales taxes, and they were forever putting a 0.25% tax on this, 0.25% tax on that to fund like the arts and fund museums. And it all sounds well and good, but those things, the temptation to say, let's put a 0.25% tax on something, and all of a sudden you're at 10% sales tax, and it happens, and taxes never go away. They just don't.
Nobody
so it would be great if Annapolis could have a sales tax in some respects, but then the other side, I just see it would be a disaster. It just certain members of council would just it would be because it would be
certain members of council.
Certain members,
like who
of council?
Who?
I'm not saying.
Who?
I'm not saying.
Oh, come on.
But
if you said Sheila, would that be...
No, I would not say that. I would absolutely not say that. That's John Fernay saying that. Not me. But, yeah, they would tax the hell out of it. So I don't think it's a good idea. But anyway, so I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what happens with this. You can put this on the Uber pile, and because I think this is going to fire up too. I think I don't know what council did with Uber. Yeah. I think they where did they end up on that? I think they got...
Yeah, they end up having to pay a fee. Each car needs to pay a fee for, I think it's $2.50 for each pickup in the city of Annapolis is what it is. How they're enforcing that, how they're collecting it is anybody's guess at this point.
I wonder if they are. It's significant. It's, I was saying Uber trip is, $10.
Yeah, but it has to originate in the city of Annapolis. It's not a drop-off. I've heard it was $2.50 originated in the city. And I'd imagine if they've got an agreement with Uber, it's all app-driven. It is a technology company, after all.
They know their location at all times.
They do know the location. They knew where they picked up. They give them the streets.
Yeah, so maybe it's straightforward.
Cross-reference that and go from there.
So maybe they'll do the same with Air BnB.
Could be.
All right.
Well, we'll see. I think we beat that horse, too.
Yep.
We'll move on.
That's our alarm right there, telling us to stop beating horses.
That's it.
That's
tomorrow. Next time we do this, we probably ought to talk about like parking in the red zone at the Giant.
Assholes. Or BMWs.
Yeah,
these are all our hot.
BMWs in a red zone at the Giant.
All right. So we're going to be out in about 2 weeks. I think we're going to shoot for Fridays. We're going to go ahead and see how that works out. But again, find us on Facebook, the Maryland Crabs page, and the Maryland Crabs group. The group is a little bit better because they don't throttle the posts, so everyone will be able to see when we put something out. And you can start discussions on your own. You can give us critiques and criticisms, which we will promptly delete. And then we'll have our YouTube channel, which we'll put out there so that if you don't have a device, an app on the device, although then I don't know how you'd be listening to this, but you can stream on YouTube. You can do it at work so no one sees you doing it. And then find us on Twitter at the Maryland Crabs and the web at themarylandcrabs.com.
That's right. And when you're not listening to this, go check out the Annapolis podcast.
Yep, got to do it. Thanks again to Scott MacMullan. He did a great job. It's great inspiration. So thank you to Scott.
Pioneer.
All right.
We're out.
2 weeks.
Bye.
This has been the Maryland Crabs podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them at all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandcrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home.